Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. Again, my name is Jeffrey Davis, and I host Radio Entrepreneurs as a sideline to my regular job as CEO of Mage LLC, a management consulting firm in the Boston area. My next guest is Andrew Plato, coming from another star, CEO and founder of Zenacita. So I hope I got that right.
Zenacity.
Zenacity, oh boy. But Zenacity, and I apologize for that. And tell me what Zenacity is. And you're also in Portland, Oregon, one of my favorite areas of the country.
That's right. That in Portland and on the bridge of the Enterprise, of course. So,
That's
thanks
great.
thanks for having me here today, Jeffrey. It's good to chat. So,
Well, you
uh,
have quite a resume, so I'm interested in hearing all about you.
oh, thank you. Yeah. So I actually run two companies, Zenacity, which is my consulting company, and I do technical due diligence consulting and cybersecurity strategy. So, one of the primary things I do is I go in when investors are looking at buying a company, and I pick apart the technology and the teams and the product, and I tell them this is good and that's not so good. And here's the things that you got to worry about if you decide to buy this company. So that's the primary thing I do. And then I also own a company called Screenopolis, where we publish movie reviews and TV reviews and analysis. Basically, it's a bunch of movie and TV geeks and other, sci-fi nerds like me.
Right. Is it all sci-fi?
No, we review pretty much anything and everything. It's mostly just it's anything streaming media, so streaming content and
Which is
which
everything.
which is pretty much everything, right? So it's
Right.
just a lot of nerdy like movie nerds like myself. So
Well, since I tend to stream a movie every night or a serial show with my wife, I mean, I'm always interested in your top 10 list. That's probably the most important thing that I want to get out of you. But tell me about your prior life and what was your entrepreneurial path to these two current destinations?
So my path goes through the cybersecurity space. So I started one of the first cybersecurity companies in the world in 1995. I worked at this little company called Microsoft way back in the 90s on this thing called the internet, which was a brand new thing back then. And my job was I did boring technical writing work. But long and short of it is, I one day I broke into a website and I was like, "Hey, this is a lot of fun and it's really interesting." But more importantly, a lot of the developers at Microsoft didn't seem to care what I was doing. Imagine that. So I got really interested in security and I left Microsoft and I started a company called Anisian. And I ran Anisian for 26 years. And we did pretty much everything in cybersecurity. We sold security technologies. We helped companies, strengthen their networks. We, hunted down hackers. We did hacking ourselves. We were what we call white hat hackers. So people would hire us to break into their network, which was a lot of fun, I might add. I eventually took the company through a couple of different versions, and in 2016, I came up with this idea for an automated cloud security platform. I built it, I took it to market, I grew sales from basically nothing to about 14 million in ARR. I got investor money, and then scaled the company up, and I exited in 2022 with pretty nice payday and have since gone on to now I'm running Tenacity and doing my Screenopolis thing and all my other little fun things. So I got a chance to sort of be part of that whole cybersecurity world for a long time, and got to do pretty much everything in that space. And it was a lot of fun. I really had a good time doing it.
Oh, that's great. Uh, are there certain areas of entrepreneurs or corporations that you feel most comfortable helping or need the most help? They might be two different questions.
That's a great question. I think one of the things I've discovered about founders in general is that we just like to help other founders. Like it's sort of just baked into our personalities that we're here to help. And that was actually a very new idea to me when I ran my company. what I've come to realize is that, founders all, regardless of the industry they're in or company, all tend to face very similar problems. They face the same challenges of, keeping the company going, of creation, of managing employees, of all these, complex, interrelationship of issues. Um, I, of course, being in the security and the technology space, uh, work better in that space. I mean, I know it really well. I know the sort of various players and details and such. So, anybody who's getting into any kind of tech business or security business, I feel more comfortable working with. But I don't think the concepts that I tend to talk a lot about apply only to that. I think they apply pretty much universally to any industry.
Interesting. Uh, but again, the whole area of cybersecurity is up for news debate almost daily. How do you feel about current media and how it's sort of creating a message to all of us about,
That's an interesting question.
well, I mean, it's every day we're hearing that, we could be in a problem.
I think the one of the challenges of cybersecurity is that it is highly dynamic, it's highly volatile, it changes constantly. There's a lot of things going on sort of under the covers that people don't see and kind of have to interact with on a day-to-day basis. However, the core sort of things that the hackers or the bad guys are after hasn't really changed that much in the last 20 some years. It boils down to many times the same things. Attackers are trying to gain access to environments. They're trying to gain access to authentication credentials are the real, that's what most hackers are after. They're after accounts or passwords or credentials, because if you're able to steal somebody's credentials, you can then use those to get into other things. That's how pretty much every company you can think of that's been breached in the last, you know, decade or two, that's how they got in. They stole somebody's credentials. So the things these people are after hasn't really changed. Once they get into these environments, it generally comes down to the same thing. It's they're either trying to do something to disrupt, cause damage, create a scene, or make money, steal information, and then sell it on one of the various black markets out there. Um, the breaches that have been going on, they feel like they just sort of are everywhere and constant. And that's actually true to a certain extent. Pretty much every company at this point, it feels like, has been breached. And that's a factor of that there's so many attackers that the attackers really have every advantage going for them. And that the companies trying to defend themselves, I mean, they're basically always fighting against a phantom, a target that they don't know where it is, they don't know when it's going to hit, they don't know how it's going to hit them. So it's really difficult to get your hands around that and get ahead of that problem. I think the media downplay tends to downplay the details and the complexity, which makes a certain amount of sense, but it tends to play up sort of the seriousness of these problems. And for the average consumer, these big breaches that happen are more of an inconvenience than they are a serious threat. The serious problems, the big attacks, the ones that pose a real danger, those are the ones you actually don't hear about, because those tend to be sort of behind the scenes. You're going to hear about the big breach where somebody lost a 400,000 records or whatever, because honestly, that's just more of an inconvenience to people, and it really is going to impact them on a day-to-day basis. The ones where hackers are breaking into, power systems or energy distribution or government agencies or other things, these are the things you just don't hear about as much. And those are the ones that are actually pretty dangerous. And by and large, those are coming from nation state sponsored attackers for the most part. It's not always those groups, but it typically is.
Very interesting. My last question to you is, The name of the company. How did you get it?
Zenacity or Anician?
Zenacity.
Zenacity. When I got the investments into Anician, I had to spin off some of my other services, so I had to come up with a name of a company pretty quickly, and so basically it's just a combination of the word Zen and tenacity.
It's a good name. I like it. You created a word. Andrew, if someone's looking to connect with you, and it seems like you could provide a lot of value to our listeners, how would they find you?
They would find me at zenacity.com. They would find me at andrewplato.com, both the two sites that I maintain. There's also screenopolis.com. So any three of those sites, good chance you're going to run into me.
Well, thanks for being on the show today. And that's not the original Star Trek studio because it's all color, but it's I was looking for the crew as well. But thanks for being on the show today, and we hope we see you again on Radio Entrepreneurs.